Alright. Hey everybody. Today is May 2nd, so we'll be looking at May 1st MTG stocks. In this one, see there are some price increases, not a ton, but mostly Commander 20 and Ikoria stuff. We have a couple of other things. And I totally did forget what cards to introduce here. The ones we're going to be kind of looking at today is the Netherborn Altar and Biorhythm. But let's go ahead and get into our first card of the day. First card of the day here is Netherborn Altar. Netherborn Altar is from the new Commander 2020 set. The price increase went from 409 to 1066, but since these cards aren't really out yet, it's kind of hard to gauge how much they should or shouldn't be. So Netherborn Altar is a one colorless black artifact. You can tap it, put a soul counter on it, and when you do, you put your commander into your hand from the command zone. Then you lose 3 life for each soul counter on Netherborn Altar. So this card is pretty interesting because this lets you kind of forego your commander's commander attacks depending on how many times you casted it. So, if you've casted your commander 2 times, now, the next time you're going to cast it is going to cost an extra 3, or 3 commander cost attack, so 6 total. So this allows you to kind of like pay some life, put it back in your hand, not kind of, not to use so much mana. That's pretty nice. It's pretty, generally good for commander, I'd say. But I think I guess that's all to explain that, and once you do that, you put a counter on it, and then you keep losing more life. So first time you do it, you lose 3. Next time you do it, you lose 6. Next time, 9, etc. So the really neat thing about this is that it kind of lets some other commanders come into play. And one of those commanders I want to talk about is Hakan Stromgald. Stromgald? Sure. Hakan Stromgald Scourge. So this is a one colorless black 3/3 legendary creature zombie knight. When you cast, you may cast Hakan from your graveyard, but not from anywhere else. As long as Hakan is on the battlefield, you may play knight cards from your graveyard. When Hakan dies, you lose 2 life. This is kind of neat in a lot of ways because with the Netherborn Altar, this basically allows you to put this in your hand. And even though you still can't cast this because it's in your hand and not your graveyard, it's a lot easier to put stuff from your hand into your graveyard than your command zone into your graveyard. So this kind of just, I think there's a couple of other ways to do it, but this allows these types of commanders where casting it from your command zone isn't an option. So I really enjoy that they made this. I don't think they were specifically targeting Hakan, but allowing this kind of interaction does allow these cards to exist as commanders a little bit easier. Hakan in general is just a nice card because you're able to keep recurring him from your graveyard and etc. Now, mind you, that means you have to actually get Netherborn Altar. And second, even if you do put him in your hand, then you have to discard him. And then on top of that, you have to hope that someone doesn't exile him. And then you have to hope that someone doesn't destroy your altar either. So there's a lot of ifs and buts in there. But aside from all that, I'm still glad that Hakan can very slightly, be slightly more usable. Sure, why not? But let's go ahead and go on to the next card here. The next card that we're going to look at is called Biorhythm. Biorhythm went from $150 to about $3. And all right, so Biorhythm is 6 colorless green sorcery. And it says each player's life total becomes the number of creatures they control. So if you have 20 creatures, your life total becomes 20. If you have 0 creatures, your life total becomes 0 and you die. Now, I'm going to go ahead and point this out here. This is banned in Commander, so we don't have to think about Commander too much unless they unban it sometime. I don't think they would, but they might. Because generally Commander is, they don't want you to kind of like win out of completely nowhere. That's kind of one of the things they kind of don't like in general. But Biorhythm in itself is kind of an interesting card. 8 mana to maybe kill somebody. But the kind of neat thing that you could do with Biorhythm, then there's probably better things to do this on later turns, but I'm pretty certain you could probably get this out on turn 1. I don't have a full combo, but you get enough mana ramp, especially in green. And even green doesn't matter here that much. But basically, one way that kind of like help do this is there is a card called Gemstone Caverns. So Gemstone Caverns is a legendary land. If it's in your opening hand and you're not playing first, you may begin the game with Gemstone Caverns on the battlefield with a luck counter on it. If you do, exile a card from your hand. Then has the ability tap, add a colorless. If it has a luck counter, add 1 mana of any color. So this allows you to get the green that you actually need for Biorhythm, since Biorhythm cost 2 green and 6 colorless. And then the other thing you can kind of do, this is another card I kind of like in general, is Lotus Petal. Lotus Petal is a 0 mana artifact. You can tap it, sacrifice it, and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So having these two there will allow you to get to 2 green, and then as long as you make sure you have at least 1 creature on the battlefield, because if you don't have 1 creature, you're going to die. But as long as you have 1 creature, then you can get your other mana through various other things, I'm pretty certain. So it's kind of like, those are 2 cards that they're probably not even that necessary. There are other cards you can do this with, but it's just kind of like a neat thing to think about. You could do a turn 1. You have to have a very lucky hand, and there's a lot of turn 1 combos, or turn 0 combos even, but kind of a neat card. So let's go ahead and kind of go into our Commander of the Night day sometime. So this is Obosh, the Prey Piercer. This is from the new Ikoria set, and it is a 3 colorless Rakdos, or 3 colorless black or red, so 5 converted mana cost in total. And it is a 3/5 legendary creature, Hellion Horror. So it has the companion text, and I guess we can go over that right now. So companion is basically, you have to meet a stipulation, and if you do, you can have this card come into the companion zone. I'll just call it that, the companion zone, and you can play it from there. So in this case, your starting deck contains only cards with odd converted mana cost and lands. So everything has to be 1, 3, 5, 7 converted mana cost, etc., etc. That I'm going to say that this will be probably fairly hard to use as a companion, because if you don't have mana ramp, and generally a lot of the good mana ramp is going to be in 2, because you're going to have your signets and things like that. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to play this as your companion, because that's going to be very hard in Rakdos. Now, if you were to play this in Jund, you probably have a lot more options for mana ramp in the odd converted mana cost, so you may actually be able to pull this off in a Jund commander deck if you're using it as a companion, but as a Rakdos, I would say it's pretty hard to do. Regardless, we're not going to look at the companion, we're looking at this as more of a commander. So let's go and read what the actual good stuff here is, and its main effect is if a source you control with an odd converted mana cost would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. So, let's go ahead and just going to go ahead and bring out like a example, because it's a little bit easier that way. So let's say that we have something like, let's see, is it, yeah, a source you control. So it could be permanent, it could be a sorcery, it could be whatever. So, for instance, the one I want to kind of look at is called Chandra's Ignition. Chandra's Ignition is a 3 colorless red sorcery, so that is 5 converted mana cost, so it is an odd converted mana cost. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent. So this is kind of a nice effect, especially with Obosh here. So basically what you do is, even if you only have Obosh out, which that's not optimal, mind you, but even if you have only Obosh out, you target Obosh with Chandra's Ignition, and then Obosh does 6 to every player and every other creature. So that's probably a board wipe at that point, and you're doing 6 damage. You're doing 18 damage to each opponent, or 18 damage total to your opponents if you have 3 opponents, which is pretty good. And that's not even optimal. You know, if you get bigger creatures out, like a 6/6 or something, then you're doing 12 to each opponent, blah blah blah. So I think Chandra's Ignition is a good example of where Obosh can really do some crazy things, and I'm sure there is a lot more examples than that. But that's one of the ones I really like. I just like Chandra's Ignition in general. I put it pretty much in any red deck, it feels like. But regardless, the other one I want to kind of look at is kind of our random card of the night. This one is the Titan Hunter, and this one is also from not Ikoria, but from Commander 2020. So Titan Hunter is a 4 colorless, black, 4/5 creature human warrior. At the beginning of each player's end step, if no creatures died this turn, Titan Hunter deals 4 damage to that player. Then you can pay 1 colorless, a black, and you sacrifice a creature, and you gain 4 life. So first off, I really just like this card in general. It's great for aristocrat decks, and etc. And the other cool thing is that since it's 5 converted mana cost, Obosh affects this, and this is pretty spooky when you think about it, because when you have Obosh out and Titan Hunter, everybody's going to take 8 at the end of their turn, which, you know, when we look at it, if they're even at 40 life, taking 8 damage, that's a fifth of their life. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. I mean, I think a lot of people like Titan Hunter, but it's kind of neat that you could take Obosh into a kind of aristocrats deck. I guess Rakdos does that pretty decently. But I guess the one thing you gotta kind of think here, though, is that Obosh's ability only works on odd converted mana cost sources. So usually, like in aristocrat decks, you're gonna want to look at kind of maybe tokens or things like that, and you could go that route. But you have to remember that tokens are going to be considered 0 mana cost, which are even converted mana cost in Magic. I'm pretty sure. If I'm wrong, let me know, but I'm pretty certain about that. So, like with Titan Hunter, you're going to probably have to sacrifice off actual creatures. Now, of course, you shouldn't completely ruin's not quite the right word. You shouldn't have to worry about that too much, because I mean, you should still probably have tokens in an aristocrat style deck, so you shouldn't be like, oh no, I can only have 1, 3, 5s and whatever. At that point in time, you might as well just make it a companion. But just, you know, keep in mind that the tokens won't be as good in the sense of if you are trying to attack with them, which actually I don't know if you're even going to try attack with them. There are going to be a lot more enchantments and other things that you can do to sacrifice them off and deal damage that way. So honestly, you should probably use tokens. Let's just say that. You should probably use tokens if you're going to go a aristocrat style Obosh. But kind of a neat idea. I mean, I just like the idea of doing 8 damage to somebody every instep, I guess. Yeah. So, anyways, that's going to be kind of our regular cards for the night. Let's go ahead and go into our random cards as always. So, random card number 1 here is Aether Adept. Aether Adept is a 1 colorless blue creature human wizard. It's a 2/2, and when it enters the battlefield, return target creature to its owner's hand. So it's nothing too special, I guess. It's a 2/2 body, allows you to put something back in their hand. I can't remember what the card is. It's just like a sorcery, costs 2, and it allows you to like catapult or something. I feel like that's wrong. Okay, so I looked it up. It's called Unsummon. So Unsummon basically is it's a 1, it's just blue, an instant, and you can return target creature to its owner's hand. So Aether Adept gives you a 2/2 body for 2 extra. I think this would be okay if you're doing like a human, or not a human, a wizard tribal or something, and you just kind of want the creature out there, because, you know, if you're doing wizard tribal, of course, having the extra body is good. It gives you a little bit like if someone just put out a 6-drop or something, and you're like, okay, well, put that back in their hand, bring out a 2/2, and then even early game, this allows you to get just a body on the field if you need to block or something. So it's not great, but, you know, if you really want the wizard tribal, sure, why not? Let's go and go into our second card of the night, which is our second random card, which is the Chief of the Foundry. Chief of the Foundry is an artifact creature construct. Other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1, and it's a 2/3. So, you know, if you're making an artifact creature deck, not bad. I think this would be good for if you have a lot of servos or something. Trying to think of like not doing good at remembering things today. Thopter Foundry or something like that. It's like a 6 colorless Thopter, something. But basically, at the beginning of your upkeep, if it's the only Thopter on the battlefield, you can return it to your hand and make 5/1/1s. So Chief of Foundry, you know, you're making when it comes back to your the other card comes back to your hand, you're making 5 2/2 flyers or something. That's pretty spooky. I mean, not like amazing, but it's not bad. So if you're nothing too crazy out there, but, you know, like I said, if you're doing an artifact creature deck, that's fine. But anyways, hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.